Welcome to our video on the fascinating life story of Princess Madeleine of Sweden. From her early years in the Swedish royal family to her pursuit of independence and eventual marriage, Princess Madeleine's journey is filled with heartwarming moments as well as unexpected scandals. In today's video, we will explore how this spirited and charming royal navigated family responsibilities, personal aspirations, and public scrutiny. Join us as we delve into the life of Princess Madeleine, a modern princess with a story unlike any other. Childhood Princess Madeleine Therese Amalie Josephine of Sweden was born on June 10, 1982, in Drottningholm Palace, a beautiful and historic setting located just outside of Stockholm. One fascinating aspect of her birth is how it symbolized the continuity of the Swedish royal family, known as the House of Bernadotte. Sweden has had a constitutional monarchy for many years, and even though some modern European countries have reduced the scope of royal powers, the Swedish royals remain highly recognized figures both at home and internationally. From the start, Princess Madeleine's life was cushioned by the privileges of royalty, grand palaces, staff members attending to various needs, and a spotlight that cast a watchful eye on her from birth. Interestingly, she was born around the same time as Prince William of the United Kingdom, which sparked some parallel curiosity among royal enthusiasts: two royals, different kingdoms, similar ages. However, the Swedish media environment has traditionally been more restrained compared to the British tabloids, at least until certain controversies draw them in. Because she's the youngest daughter of King Carl XVI Gustav and Queen Sylvia, Princess Madeleine grew up with less direct pressure regarding royal succession than her sister, Crown Princess Victoria, who is next in line to the throne. This reality allowed young Madeleine a more relaxed upbringing in some respects. She could occasionally dodge the intense scrutiny that followed her elder siblings, especially Victoria, who has been groomed to eventually become the Queen of Sweden. Yet, being the youngest princess didn't mean Madeleine could live an entirely carefree life. Royal protocols, philanthropic expectations, and public appearances were still woven into her upbringing. Even from an early age, she attended formal events, special ceremonies, and national celebrations that required her presence. Picture a mischievous child peeking around corners in a grand palace corridor, or rushing onto a balcony during a National Day celebration. These images capture a blend of youthful spontaneity and the weight of regal expectations. Her diagnosis of dyslexia is a particularly noteworthy aspect. Dyslexia is a learning difference that can manifest through difficulties with reading, spelling, and writing. However, many individuals with dyslexia are extraordinarily gifted in creative thinking and problem-solving. In the Swedish royal family, Madeleine was not the only one with this diagnosis. Her sister, Crown Princess Victoria, and her brother, Prince Carl Philip, also faced similar challenges. Rather than letting dyslexia become a stumbling block, the Swedish royals made it part of their advocacy, publicly acknowledging it to reduce stigma. Over time, with dedicated tutoring, specialized learning programs, and plenty of support, Madeleine successfully progressed through her academic milestones. Despite the formal environment of palaces and official engagements, the glimpses we see of Madeleine's childhood are largely carefree and fun. Royal watchers recall her playful smiles during public appearances. She was known to crack jokes and occasionally lead her siblings into silly pranks that were charmingly documented in Swedish newspapers and royal watchers' journals. This mischievous streak contributed to her public image as the fun, younger sister, a label that followed her into adulthood. When not in school, Princess Madeleine was often engaged in riding horses, a passion that would follow her into later life. Equestrian sports are a favorite pastime among many royals, and she was no exception. She spent time at the Royal Mews, practicing dressage and show jumping, a skill she nurtured from a young age. Her love for animals extended beyond horses. She was also fond of dogs, sometimes seen walking them around the palace grounds. Academically, although dyslexia presented challenges, she found ways to adapt. She worked closely with tutors who specialized in helping children with learning differences. Over time, reading and writing became more manageable, proving that early interventions and consistent effort can indeed mitigate many of dyslexia's hurdles. By the time she finished her primary and secondary education, she was well prepared to attend university, setting her on a path to explore her personal interests independently, an opportunity she was clearly eager to embrace. Family. Her father, King Carl XVI Gustav, born in 1946, ascended the throne in 1973. The Swedish monarchy under his reign is constitutional, meaning that while the king is the head of state, his role is largely ceremonial. Carl XVI Gustav is known for championing environmental causes and youth programs, and he has lent royal support to various international development initiatives. He is admired by many Swedes for his measured approach to kingship but has also faced the intense scrutiny that all modern royals must endure. Her mother, Queen Sylvia, born Sylvia Renata Sommerlath in 1943, has a German-Brazilian background. She met Carl XVI Gustav during the 1972 Summer Olympics in Munich, where she was working as an educational host. Married to the king since 1976, Queen Sylvia has been noted for her charitable work, particularly in the areas of dementia care and children's welfare. She founded the World Childhood Foundation, an organization that Princess Madeleine would later be heavily involved in. Her older sister, Crown Princess Victoria, born in 1977, Victoria is next in line to the Swedish throne. She carries the title of Crown Princess, signifying her direct place in the line of succession. Victoria has often been front and center in national events and is one of the most popular royals in Sweden. She famously battled an eating disorder in her younger years, but overcame it with professional help. Her commitment to her role is evident, and she's seen as a stabilizing figure within the royal family. And her older brother, Prince Carl Philip, born in 1979, Carl Philip was, for a few months after his birth, the heir to the throne until a change in Swedish law favored absolute primogeniture, meaning the firstborn child, regardless of gender, inherits the throne. Although Carl Philip is no longer the crown prince, he maintains an active role in royal duties and is well regarded by the Swedish public. In such a structured family, you might imagine that every action is watched and sometimes second-guessed, both inside and outside palace walls. Yet, the Swedish royals have also shown adaptability to modern trends, including supporting their children's decisions to live abroad, study overseas, or pursue personal careers. That adaptability was crucial when Princess Madeleine announced her plan to seek independence, which included living outside the royal palace. Initially, King Carl XVI Gustav and Queen Sylvia had reservations because stepping out of the palace bubble meant exposing Madeleine to new challenges, some of which they could not entirely shield her from. But they also understood that times were changing, and if they wanted their children to grow into well-rounded individuals, they would need to support these steps toward personal freedom. Education and early independence. Art history might seem like an unusual choice for a princess, but it aligns well with the cultural heritage roles often embraced by royals. Sweden, with its rich tradition of modern design and centuries-old artworks, provides plenty of inspiration. Studying art history at Stockholm University was not just an academic venture, it was also part of her personal exploration, an area of genuine interest for her. Leaving the 17th-century Stockholm royal palace for a modest apartment in the city centre was a symbolic move for the princess. Imagine transitioning from a life where everything, meals, security, scheduling, was orchestrated by palace staff, to managing a small, everyday household. While many her age take such independence for granted, for a royal, it marked a significant step into uncharted territory. Reports from that period indicate that Madeleine found joy in simple tasks like shopping for groceries and experimenting with cooking, all without the watchful eye of palace employees. Her decision to enroll in a short-term course in London further exemplified this drive toward independence. London, however, came with its own set of complications. The British tabloids are infamous for aggressively pursuing stories about royals, both British and foreign. Paparazzi were relentless. The princess was often photographed entering and exiting her flat, attending university buildings, and even walking down the street. It wasn't just about capturing images. Sensational headlines frequently popped up, painting speculative stories about her personal life. It helps to understand that in the early 2000s, royal watchers in Britain were starved for new, exciting stories. Prince William was a young royal star at the time, and any rumor linking him to another European royal, especially one as beautiful and charismatic as Princess Madeleine, was catnip for the tabloids. Even though the notion of a romance between Madeleine and William was entirely unfounded, the press used every opportunity to sow speculation. For Princess Madeleine, the intrusion was more than an annoyance. She had hoped that London would offer relative anonymity, a place to be a student first and a princess second. Instead, she found that her new environment made her a prime target for gossip columns. The endless swarm of reporters and photographers eventually took a toll on her mental well-being, pushing her to reconsider her stay in the UK. Not long afterward, she returned to Sweden, disappointed but also wiser about the global media landscape that follows royals wherever they go. Scandal British tabloids have a long history of fueling royal romance rumors. Sensational headlines about a potential European royal love connection were typical, especially involving Prince William, who was, and remains, one of the most high-profile royals in the world. The speculation largely ignored the fact that Princess Madeleine was already involved in a serious relationship at the time. The tabloids capitalized on the possibility of connecting two young, attractive royals, knowing it would drive sales. While rumors linking royal families across borders have existed for centuries, the difference in the 21st century is the relentless 24/7 news cycle. Princess Madeleine was caught in this vortex of rumor and gossip, making her day-to-day life intensely stressful. She had originally sought privacy and new experiences in London, but instead found a fishbowl existence far more invasive than she had experienced in Stockholm. Her return to Sweden was immediate, abrupt, and telling. Although some observers might say she gave in to the tabloid pressure, it was also a strategic withdrawal from an environment that threatened her emotional and mental stability. This scandal is perhaps the most notorious episode in Princess Madeleine's life prior to her marriage to Chris. Jonas Bergström was perceived as a near-perfect match for Princess Madeleine. He was successful, from a good family, and well-liked by the king and queen. The couple had been together for several years, solidifying a reputation as a stable royal love story, until it all came crashing down. Let's consider the cultural implications of such a scandal in Sweden. Although Sweden is often described as forward-thinking and open-minded, the Swedish royal family still represents national tradition and continuity. News of infidelity, particularly involving a princess's fiancé, was bound to cause an uproar. The storyline was compelling to the media, a fairy tale romance shattered by betrayal, a heartbroken princess taking swift action, and a fiancé forced to face the king and queen in a dramatic confrontation. The involvement of a Norwegian tabloid added an international dimension. Scandinavia, while united by certain cultural similarities, includes distinct media markets that sometimes compete to break the biggest royal or celebrity stories. The Norwegian tabloids capitalized on this sensational reveal, quickly turning it into front-page news across the region. The speed of Madeleine's actions is noteworthy. Within 3 days of the scandal breaking, she removed her engagement ring and flew to New York, effectively signaling to the world that the relationship was over. For a royal figure, someone often expected to maintain a calm public persona, this immediate, decisive response demonstrated the strength of her will and her refusal to tolerate public humiliation. The royal family's subsequent announcement made it official, confirming that the engagement had ended. This event not only affected Madeleine's personal life but also shaped public perception of her. Some admired her for her resolute stance. Others lamented the downfall of what had seemed like a perfect union. Regardless, the scandal reaffirmed the reality that royals, while living in palaces and dealing with protocol, are not immune to the same heartbreaks and betrayals that ordinary people face. Other relationships for 7 years, Princess Madeleine and Jonas Bergström seemed inseparable. They traveled together, appeared at countless social events, and gave the impression that their relationship was heading in a steady, upward trajectory. Royal watchers often praised Jonas for his professional achievements and for how seamlessly he appeared to integrate into the royal circle. Their engagement press conference in 2009 was a picture-perfect moment. A radiant Princess Madeleine showed off her ring, the press flashed cameras, and Swedish citizens smiled at the prospect of another grand royal wedding. Royal weddings in Sweden are a major affair, often accompanied by lavish ceremonies held in Stockholm's iconic royal chapels or cathedrals, drawing the attention of international media and visiting dignitaries. In fact, 2010 was shaping up to be a year of celebration for the Swedish royal family. Crown Princess Victoria's wedding to Daniel Westling was scheduled for June 2010, a highly anticipated event. The plan was for Madeleine's wedding to follow suit, possibly in the autumn or winter of the same year, thereby extending the festive atmosphere. However, the scandal intervened, abruptly halting those plans and creating a sense of crisis within the family. Some observers have speculated that the length of Madeleine's relationship with Jonas might have masked underlying issues. The near decade they spent together made the scandal especially shocking. For a couple so outwardly stable, the betrayal hit doubly hard. A key lesson from this chapter is that no relationship, royal or otherwise, is guaranteed to be free from the unexpected twists of human behavior. Broken engagements can be painful in any context, but when it involves a high-profile royal, the emotional strain is compounded by intensive media coverage. Princess Madeleine's departure to New York was more than just a trip overseas, it was a strategic move to escape the constant reminder of her broken engagement in Sweden. By relocating to a bustling international city, she hoped to find anonymity and a fresh start. Queen Sylvia's efforts to involve her daughter in charitable endeavors were specifically targeted toward organizations connected to the World Childhood Foundation, a nonprofit founded by Queen Sylvia. The foundation aims to support vulnerable children around the world by preventing violence, exploitation, and abuse. Working with a cause so closely linked to her mother might have offered Princess Madeleine a sense of purpose during a difficult time. Despite her royal status, Madeleine tried to blend in with the city's diverse populace. She was occasionally spotted strolling around Manhattan, dining in restaurants, and meeting friends. Although New York City paparazzi do exist, the scale and intensity often pale in comparison to certain European tabloids, especially those in the UK, so she did find some respite. Heartbreak is universal, and even though the princess had high-profile parents and vast resources, emotional pain can't be bypassed. Skipping the Swedish Week event in Seattle demonstrated just how raw her emotions were. Planning any public appearance requires a level of emotional control, and clearly, Madeleine wasn't ready. It speaks volumes that Princess Victoria stepped in, despite her own wedding being imminent. This moment is a testament to the closeness of the sisters, showing that royal duties sometimes give way to personal support. During this 6-month period, Madeleine took the time to introspect, recover, and reorient herself. New York provided a new backdrop, new possibilities, and a chance to forge a path forward without the immediate pressures of Swedish royal life. Marriage. Chris O'Neill's background is distinctly international, reflecting a cosmopolitan upbringing that might have resonated strongly with a princess who always felt the pull of independence and travel. Born to an American father, Paul O'Neill, and an Austrian mother, Eva Maria O'Neill, Chris had lived and studied in multiple countries, making him a truly global citizen. By the time he met Princess Madeleine, he was already deeply involved in the financial sector, working in prestigious firms in New York. While the exact circumstances of their first meeting haven't been exhaustively detailed in public, it is believed they were introduced through mutual friends in New York social circles, possibly at a charity event or a private gathering. This low-key introduction, away from the glaring public eye, was ideal for Princess Madeleine, who was still healing from her previous heartbreak. Chris's easygoing manner and similar age likely helped them connect quickly. One of the more unusual aspects of their marriage was Chris's decision not to take on a Swedish royal title. Typically, marrying into a royal family could come with titles or honors, but Chris O'Neill chose to retain his dual British-American citizenship and remain a private individual for professional and personal reasons. In the modern world, not all spouses of royals are required to adopt royal titles, especially if the monarchy in question is relatively flexible, as is the Swedish monarchy. By not becoming a Swedish citizen, Chris was able to continue working in finance without the added scrutiny or limitations that might come with an official royal title. The royal wedding took place on June 8, 2013, at the Royal Chapel in Stockholm's Royal Palace. It was a grand affair, though smaller in scale than Crown Princess Victoria's wedding, attended by European royals, international dignitaries, and close family and friends. The media covered it enthusiastically, partly because this wedding represented a happy ending to Madeleine's earlier heartbreak. The ceremony featured all the traditional Swedish royal touches, including a carriage ride through Stockholm streets where well-wishers cheered on the newlyweds. After the wedding, the couple primarily resided in New York for a while, where Chris continued his finance career. Princess Madeleine also took on greater involvement in charitable and philanthropic work, notably with the World Childhood Foundation. They later moved to London for Chris's professional endeavors. London, despite Madeleine's earlier negative experiences with tabloids, offered new opportunities. By this point, she was older, married, and perhaps better equipped to handle media attention. More recently, they have spent periods of time living in Florida in the United States, offering their children a comfortable environment and allowing Chris to manage his career more fluidly. This pattern of moving around is distinct from the more traditional approach, where royals largely remain near their home base. But it fits Madeleine's long-standing desire for independence and a global lifestyle. Instead of fulfilling purely ceremonial duties in Sweden, she partakes in them selectively while focusing on her family and philanthropic commitments across the Atlantic. In a world where many royal spouses are subject to strict ceremonial roles, Chris and Madeleine have carved out a more relaxed family model. By Chris occasionally handling household tasks, they set a tone of teamwork and modern partnership, rather than a strictly traditional arrangement. When Madeleine praises him publicly for being a supportive and hands-on husband, it resonates with many young couples who juggle career, family, and personal commitments. One of the more heartwarming developments in Madeleine's post-marriage life is her foray into writing a children's book. While it may seem unusual for a princess, it aligns with her philanthropic interests. Children's welfare has always been central to her identity, thanks in large part to Queen Sylvia's influence. Writing a children's book also serves as a constructive outlet for Madeleine's creativity, showing she's more than just a princess who appears at galas, she's also someone who can author a book that might inspire kids around the world. Royal duties versus personal life, balancing act. Even though we don't get a detailed snapshot of Princess Madeleine's day-to-day duties, it's important to remember she's still very much part of the Swedish royal family. She regularly attends big national functions, think the annual Nobel Prize banquet in Stockholm, the King's birthday celebrations, and other key commemorative events. Of course, her role isn't as front and center as that of her older sister, Crown Princess Victoria, who's set to become Sweden's next head of state. When she's not fulfilling ceremonial obligations, Princess Madeleine devotes time to charities, especially those focused on children's welfare. Much of this work is done through her mother's World Childhood Foundation. While her philanthropic schedule may not be as packed as Victoria's or Prince Carl Philip's, it remains a vital part of who she is, and an important way she contributes to the royal family's public image. As we reach the end of Princess Madeleine's life story, it becomes clear that her path is defined by resilience, love, and the pursuit of personal happiness. From overcoming childhood challenges to finding her true partner in Chris, her experiences highlight the balance between royal duties and private life. Though often in the spotlight, Princess Madeleine has carved out a fulfilling future for herself, raising a family, writing children's books, and continuing to be an endearing figure to many. Her story stands as an inspiring testament to following one's heart and embracing new beginnings. Thank you for watching and celebrating the life of this remarkable Swedish princess.